Welcome back to the Rich and Judy Book Club in association with WHSmith. Today's book is This Perfect World by Suzanne Bugler. The subtitle of this that's been slapped on by the publishers is Beautiful People Do the Ugliest Things, which pretty much sums up the spine of the book. Laura Hamley is a golden-edged, rich, slightly bored housewife and mother. And Hedley Partridge was at school with her. Hedley Partridge is also a mother, but she's a wreck. She's a shell of a woman because of the, well, I'd say bullying, but I think torture would be a better word, that she encountered at the hands of Laura and her friends when they were at school. It's a cri de coeur against bullies. It really is this. Anybody who had been a bully at school, and many people were and grew up to be fine, upstanding and lovely members of society, might read this and shrink from themselves because the damage that is done in this persistent, psychologically mostly bullying of poor, fat, plain Hedley Partridge, as I say, reduces her to a human shell, doesn't it, in the end?
Yeah. Well, I think the damage done in childhood lives with you.
Do you think that she was very popular, Laura, because she was blonde and pretty and clever and fun, and so were all her friends, you know, blonde and pretty and clever and fun. Do you think that sort of the fact that Heddy was so physically unprepossessing, you know, she has this big mole or something on her face and she's overweight. Do you think that physical thing between girls at school is very important in deciding who's in and who's out?
Massively, I think, especially when you're very young.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wanted to be blonde, like a princess.
Yeah.
And I mean, Heddy doesn't stand a chance.
No.
But also because of her home circumstances as well. Being perfectly groomed, having the ballet lessons, all that sort of things which make little girls part of the right crowd. It just didn't happen for her.
Yeah.
I love the idea in the book that, you know, we can do things that we regret, but we can always put them behind us and forget about them. And that's what Laura's done. She's got this wonderful life and handsome, well-off husband. But the past does have this habit of strolling up behind us and tapping us on the shoulder. And that comes in the form of Heddy's mother, Mrs. Partridge, as she's called throughout the book, Mrs. Partridge. Very ordinary, down-to-earth, working-class woman who tracks Laura Hamley down, not to wreak vengeance, but to ask for her help. Just explain that. It's a really interesting idea.
Well, without giving too much away, the two families are very much connected, and Laura and Heddy were connected throughout their childhoods, and the cruelty that Laura inflicted upon Heddy, Laura did actually also inflict cruelty upon herself. I think Mrs. Partridge was always in awe of Laura's family, and now Laura conveniently is married to a lawyer, and Mrs. Partridge needs the help of a lawyer.
Because Heddy's been sectioned.
Heddy is in,
sectioned and can't get out.
Can't get out because she's got caught in that spiral and just can't break out of it. And Laura's family always, at least apparently, always helped Heddy's family when they were when the girls were children. The parents were very much interconnected, although there's a very
there's a mystery.
Undercurrent there.
There's a mystery to that which we see at the end, which is a great twist, by the way.
But that was, I mean, in a sense, that was, well, Heddy would have been bullied anyway because of the way she looked and the way she was. But in a sense, the way Laura's parents kept telling her, look, just be nice to Heddy.
Be friends.
You know, you're going to dancing class or whatever. We must give Heddy a lift. We must, you know, you must be friends with her. And that made Laura angrier. And actually, I think that rings very true. As an adolescent, if your parents keep on telling you,
well, it made the bullying worse, didn't it?
Yeah.
In that case.
No, but what I meant was it rings very true because if your parents do keep telling you as an adolescent to pal up with or not pal up with a particular person, it makes you feel very annoyed and contrary.
Well, that phone call out of nowhere, in fact, what's happened is Heddy's mother has bumped into Laura's mother and got her daughter's number from her, and she calls her up. That one phone call is the beginning of, I suppose, a slow unfolding car crash in Laura's life.
Yeah.
Getting back in touch with the family, having to go and see Heddy, all the guilt that's there, the intransigent nature of Heddy's illness. I mean, she's virtually comatose. Bit by bit by bit by bit breaks up this perfect world. It's almost sadistic the way you do it, actually. I mean, the retribution of fate, as it were, on poor, you know, Laura, who didn't really mean it when she was a kid. She was just a child. Is complete, isn't it? I mean, she is completely destroyed by her past.
Yeah. I mean, she starts off. I mean, she's a very, very flawed character. She's not a nice person. But then perhaps most people are slightly flawed. But she does. Her life completely unravels, completely falls apart. But that's perhaps the price she has to pay. But she becomes a better person for it. I think at the beginning you may think, oh God, she's just not a nice person. But she does turn around, and you do, I hope, see that there is good in her and hope for her.
Yes, I think that's right. It all gets terribly, terribly messy. It's a bloody good read, but it gets very, very messy. But you're quite right. Even though, I don't want to give the end away here, even though things don't end up the way that everybody would like, she does find redemption for at least trying.
Yeah.
For at least trying to put things right. Would this be, this is oversimplistic, would you, if I suggested to you that this book's slightly anti-women?
Would you say so?
Yes, would you know what I mean?
Anti-certain type.
Anti-certain type of slightly celebrity obsessed or
Perfect women, but the kind of women who go to school, on the school run to pick up their children wearing, the most immaculate, perfect, fashionable clothes.
footballers' wives kind of territory.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I'm being oversimplistic.
But I think it's, I think women put enormous pressure on other women.
Yeah.
Women, although they're friends with each other and support each other in so many ways, they're also their harshest critics. They can be very cruel, really, to each other, the competition. And I think when you have small children, your children start at school or nursery, you suddenly enter this world of massive competition. And to me, that was quite a shock because I hadn't really perhaps been in the company of such a female-dominated world, if you like, until I had my children.
Yes, you had that wonderful scene in the garden when Laura's daughter and a school friend are playing outside, and the school friend's mother's there, and she's insisting that they should all learn French and they should sing French songs. It reminds me very much of when my kids were in the early stages of primary school. That horrible, my child can already count to 15, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, you talk about the character's kind of brittleness at the start, Laura's character, and it's beautifully summed up in the way she begins to tell her story to us, the reader. She says, Hetty Partridge was never my friend. I have to start with that. Hetty Partridge was never my friend because I was pretty, popular, clever and blonde. And my friends were pretty, popular, clever and generally blonde too. Hetty Partridge was none of these things. So she starts very brittle, but is dissolved by events. It's a great story. Congratulations. It's a really, really satisfying read. This Perfect World by Suzanne Bugler. And once you've read it, do come back to this website, whsmith.co.uk/Richard and Judy, and give us your verdict. Tell us what you thought. Tell your friends. Share it on the site. And happy reading. You'll enjoy it.